Hey guys, welcome to our YouTube channel. So glad that you tuned in for week number 4 of what to do when you don't know what to do. There are not really any announcements, so go ahead and play the bumper.
So, when you don't know how to do something, how to fix something, or how something works, what do? Ask a teacher? Ask your parents? Ask your friends? Ask someone you really know and trust? No! You go to the internet and ask some randos. But I'm not talking about creeps here, I hope. No, I mean the people of the internet! You know, those people who make how-to videos. Because chances are, if you're trying to figure out something, someone on the internet has already figured it out for you. Things like, how do I unsend a text? No. How do I do a winged eyeliner? How do I get rid of the zit by Friday night? How do I get out of gym class? How do I screen cap Snapchat without getting caught? They'll never know. But then there are things in life that don't have an easy fix, that don't have a simple solution, that don't have a how-to video. Things like what to do when you have problems with family, or when it seems like you have no control in your life, or what to do when someone has done something to you. I mean, clearly, they gotta go. The truth is, there's a lot of life that doesn't have a solution you can just find online. So how do you know what to do when you don't know what to do?
We all love movies. They're amazing, am I right? And one of the things that make movies great are the characters. We fall in love with these characters and we like to know what's going on. We want to know what happens next. We want to know their backstory. We want to know all these things about these characters because we have a connection with them because of the amazing, awesome characters that are in movies that we love. And when they share the backstory, it's a way of letting us know what happened before what we're watching. So maybe the movie centers around a dad that saves his daughter, and the backstory shows that their relationship was broken and is broken and has some brokenness in it. Or maybe the movie centers around a superhero that's trying to defeat this one villain, and in a backstory we find out that they actually were friends, but something happened that divided their relationship. And understanding the backstory helps us make a story more complex, compelling, and interesting. But sometimes introducing these random backstories, they feel odd to us. That we're watching a guy chase someone down as he's trying to fight for his daughter, and all of a sudden in the middle of him chasing down, in the heat of the moment, it goes to this backstory moment where they're just talking, and then all of a sudden it gets heated in an argument and she leaves. And we're like, wait, what just happened? What does this have to do with anything? And chances are you've felt that about your own life. That there are moments in our very real life stories that make us ask the question of what's happening and what's the point of me going through this? We're talking about difficulties, the pain, the struggle, the problems, the things that will be a part of our backstory one day. But as for now, they are our current story when we're in the middle of them, and it's hard. And for the past few weeks, we've been looking at what to do when you don't know what to do. And today we're going to be talking about what to do when people make fun of you, when a friend dies, when your learning disability makes everything really hard, when your parents are getting a divorce, when your self-harm habits get out of control, when you find out that you're addicted to pornography, when someone you love gets really sick. In other words, all the heavy stuff of life, the painful stuff, but the very real stuff. But before we can ask the question of what am I supposed to do, we usually ask ourselves the question, why? Why is this happening to me? Why am I going through this? Why is this happening right now? And just like the movie that flashes back to a scene that doesn't seem to make any sense at the moment, difficulties can make us feel the same way. Difficulties often, they feel random, pointless, and unnecessary. But sometimes we see the point after the fact. where the backstory, we're looking back on that backstory and we realize, oh, I see why that happened. So maybe you had a broken friendship and it was really hard, but now looking back, you're like, oh, they're making some decisions that I don't want to make, and if I were still with them, I probably would have made those decisions. Or sometimes we see the point even in the moment where maybe we are not doing really well at our sport and someone calls us out on it and it's kind of embarrassing, and we work really hard, even harder than the other students we're playing along with, and we know in the moment that it just is going to make me a better player. It's nice when those things happen, but most of the time, things that don't feel good, they seem pointless, and we don't see the point after the fact or in the middle of it. And we've all had an experience that hurts and feels pointless in the moment. Whether or not it was making a team, getting a part in the musical, going through drama with your friends and family, or we've asked our questions, why me? Why is this happening to me? And if you're like me, there's usually not many good answers in the moment. And what's worse, in real life, unlike the movies, our difficult circumstances and situations usually don't get a pretty bow tie on them as we're walking through them, and they don't always work out the way we want them to work out. So what are we supposed to do when that happens? In those difficult times, for us to see the point behind our struggles, what should we do? So we've been looking at a guy named Joseph, and the account of his journey is found in the Old Testament, in the book of the Bible, the first book, the book of Genesis. And this means that he lived way before Jesus was on earth. So here's kind of a recap of what we've been looking at so far these last couple weeks. So Joseph, he had 12 or 11 brothers, and they sold him into slavery. Yikes. And then he was taken to this foreign country, a country named Egypt, and this is where he was able to be forced worked for a high official in Egypt. Then he was falsely accused of doing something he didn't do and was thrown into prison. So this is Joseph's life right now. His family sold him into slavery. He goes into slavery, kind of worked his way up in a kind of bad situation, and then got thrown into prison. He went from a free man to a slave to a prisoner. So if anyone has earned the right to ask, what's the point and why is this happening to me? It's Joseph. And that's where we're going to pick up. Joseph, he's in jail and for a crime that he didn't commit, and he has some new friends. So check out in Genesis 40. Sometime later, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt offended their master, the king of Egypt. And Pharaoh was angry with his two officials, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, and put them in custody in the house of the captain to the guard, in the same prison where Joseph was confined. And Pharaoh, last week we talked about how Pharaoh is the boss of Egypt. Whatever he says goes. It doesn't matter what we think, it's happening. So if he just wanted to throw people in prison, he could do that because he is the boss, even if they didn't do anything illegal. And that's what happened to these two guys. They offended him on accident. They weren't trying to be mean. Then Pharaoh didn't like it, and they threw him into prison, in the same prison with Joseph. And the story continues. After they had been in custody for some time, each of the two men, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were being held in prison, had a dream the same night, and each dream had a meaning of its own. When Joseph came to them the next morning, he saw that they were dejected. So he asked Pharaoh's officials who were in custody with him in his master's house, "Why do you look so sad today?" "We both had dreams," they answered, "but there is no one to interpret them." Then Joseph said to them, "Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me your dreams." So there's a lot happening right here. But remember, Joseph is in prison for a crime he didn't commit. And even in this really difficult circumstance, what did Joseph do? Joseph continues to honor God. The men told Joseph their dreams, and with God's help, he was able to understand those dreams. And this is what happened. Joseph heard the dreams, and based on the dream of the chief cupbearer, Joseph said he was going to be in a favorable position and would be eventually taken out of prison and being restored on the Pharaoh's court. And then it happened. The cupbearer was taken out of prison and was able to work for the Pharaoh again. But as for the chief baker, was not as favorable. He did not have such luck. But you would think, given the circumstances, when the cupbearer went back to work for the Pharaoh, he would say something about the guy that told about this dream and it then ended up happening. Especially when Joseph asked him to do that. But he didn't. The cupbearer didn't say anything to Pharaoh. That's not what happened. The story tells us that the cupbearer forgot about Joseph, that he got out of jail and went on with his life, never to think of Joseph again. Over time, as Joseph was waiting in jail for his friend to remember him, he realized that not only did his friend forget about him, but what he did to help his friend did not help him at all. And I'm sure he had to wonder, why is this happening? What is the point of all this? It didn't help my life get better at all. Has God forgotten about me? I thought what I did was right, and I'm still here sitting in jail. But then, 2 years later, 2 years. So if you're a freshman back in 7th grade, 2 years. Senior, you were a sophomore, 2 years. Pharaoh had 2 dreams that troubled him greatly. He desperately searched for someone that was able to interpret the dreams, but he couldn't find anyone. And then the cupbearer remembered, Joseph, 2 years later. And he told the Pharaoh about Joseph and how he interpreted his dream and it came true. And Pharaoh sent for Joseph immediately and he was able to interpret those dreams. Joseph interpreted the dreams and had incredible accuracy. So much so that as a result, Joseph was put into second in command under Pharaoh. And under Joseph's leadership, Egypt was saved from a famine that would have destroyed Egypt if they had not been prepared for it. They were so prepared that they were even able to help other people in other countries around them. But it was 2 years before the cupbearer even remembered Joseph. And even when Joseph was promoted to a position of incredible power, he still was living in a foreign land. So it wasn't like Joseph became this free man and everything in his life was great. He still was in a country that he didn't belong in. And he was still second in command under Pharaoh, the guy that could just be like, you know what, I don't like you anymore, I'm throwing you into prison. Imagine the stress and tension that was always going around in his life. So no, this did not make Joseph's life perfect. Not even close. But when we see the big picture and understand the context to this backstory of Joseph, we see that Joseph's challenging circumstances uniquely positioned him to do something great. Joseph had to wait for 2 years for that to happen, and all the good things that happened in Joseph's life wouldn't make those things, the bad things, go away. Being promoted in second in command didn't undo the challenges that he still had to face every day. But at the same time, those difficult circumstances positioned him and prepared him for something great, something only he could do. And the same is true for you. Hard things happen in our life, and it is important to remember that just because something happens doesn't mean it was something God did to you or wanted for you. Because of sin, things happen in our world and in our life that we don't want. Things that we may have chosen in our sinfulness, or things that were completely out of our control because of the sin of others. But when it seems like impossible circumstances that could be nowhere close ever to being used for good, remember that God is able to do the impossible. In Romans 8:28, it says this, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." So it may not seem to make things all better, and it may not even make sense yet, but God is in the business of taking our brokenness, our hurt and pain and struggles and redeeming them. That means if there's anything done in evil, God is able to redeem those things and use it for his good. So when you don't know what to do, remember that your problems can position you for a purpose. This doesn't mean that everything bad in our life will go away. It doesn't mean that everything will be fixed and go to back how it normally was. It just means that we can leave room for God to tell a new story in our hard circumstances. It means we can have confidence in God's ability to redeem broken things. The hardest and worst things we experience aren't the end of us or the end of our story. In fact, they could be a part of something bigger than us. So when we go through pain and we can't see the purpose yet, here are just 2 things to help us through it. Number 1, remember that no one else has your life story. Your difficult circumstances, they're not fun. They're horrible and they suck. But they put you in a position to learn, grow, and discover things no one else can. God uses your tough circumstances to pull you closer to him and grow you closer to him, as well as grow you into a better person. I remember that your story can interact with others. Although no one has your life in your exact circumstances, other people are going through similar circumstances. And you can step in and walk with them and have people walk with you in those hard circumstances. When you go through family drama, you can help people who are going through family drama as well. When you go through a hard breakup, you can understand how it feels when someone's heart is broken through that. When you deal with sickness, injury, or illness, you can encourage people that are going through the same thing. And when you have big doubts and questions about faith and God, you can walk with people who are having those same questions. You can become a person that looks around, see the people and their struggles, and walk with them. You can say, are you dealing with this? Me too. Have you ever dealt with this? Me too. I've been there. The ability for us to walk alongside people and people to walk alongside us in our mess is a very powerful thing. And that's one of the reasons why we try to make sure that all the students that come to Twig have people that care about them deeply and genuinely. Joseph, he went through a pain that felt very pointless. But when we see his backstory, we see that God used his problems and positioned him for a purpose that was far bigger than him. God took his impossibly bad situation and turned it for an unimaginable good down the road. And we'll talk more about that next week in our last lesson of what to do, not to do. But I want to leave you with this question. What if God used your painful situation to position you for something amazing that you haven't even imagined yet? And what if the first step is simply asking God